So Billings got a really bad reputation.
We made it a compilation.
And now town.
We ended up losing. They went to.
All right, I went in on to see.
No, so when,
Literally.
gonna get lost down the next one, right? You willing to?
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Three and three for.
I'm clerk, the time is 5:46. You can follow this Management Advisory Committee meeting to order. Town of Aurora acknowledges that the Anishinaabe lands on which we live and work are the traditional and treaty territory of the Chippewas of Georgina Island, as well as many other nations whose presence here continues to this day. As the closest First Nation community to Aurora, we recognize the special relationship the Chippewas have with the lands and waters of this territory. They are the water protectors and environmental stewards of these lands, and as a municipality, we join them in these responsibilities. We further acknowledge that Aurora is part of the treaty lands of the Mississaugas and Chippewas recognized through Treaty Number 13, as well as the Williams Treaties of 1923. Shared understanding of the rich cultural heritage that has existed for centuries and how our collective past brought us to where we are today will help us walk together into a better future. Motion to approve the agenda. Reese, Thompson, comments, questions? All those in favor? Opposed, that carries. Any declarations of pecuniary interest? None. And motion to receive the minutes from February 13, 2024. Councilor Thompson, Councilor Reese, comments, questions on minutes? None. All those in favor? Opposed, that carries. No delegations. We have 3 items for consideration. First one is budget review, the Aurora Historical Society.
I'll do a quick introduction. So we have members of the Aurora Historical Society here. They've provided their audited statements and they've also provided some additional information on how they're spending their budget. So we have an opportunity here for maybe just give a quick overview and then the committee can ask any questions.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. Mr. Mayor, members of council, members of the Finance Advisory Committee. My name is Jeffrey Daw. I'm the co-president of the Aurora Historical Society, also the co-treasurer. We're short on volunteers. Dan McGowan is helping with the treasury function. He's just moving into that. John Green is a board member. He missed our board meeting last night, so he's.
I was in this room last night.
And the most important person here is Kathleen Denny. Kathleen is our administrator curator. So all the tough questions I have to go to Dan, Kathleen. I'm just here for the bad jokes and the good ones.
Free pizza.
So the information that we provided was our December 31st, 2022 audited financials. We also provided an overview sheet, which you may have had an opportunity to examine. And I've also sent Jason a copy of our balance sheet and profit and loss for the year ending 2023. Our audited financials for 2023 will be in progress after personal tax season is over. So in June, we have to file by June 30th. You can see we've gone back with, and this is the sheet that we have. This overview sheet comes with modifications as suggested by council 2 years ago. So we have provided back to 2018. So we have audited for 18, 19, 20, 21, and 22. We have projected, and it should be very close for 2023 and our forecast for 24, 25, 26. 2020, 2021 are somewhat anomalous simply because of COVID and the number of grants that we're very fortunate in receiving. Managed to stave us through the last couple of years. But you can see as we've been moving, as we're moving forward, the harsh reality of our operation is that we're losing money every year. That is mostly due to, well, first of all, the operating expense for the actual building itself, the overhead house, and for our staffing in order to provide the programming services that we do. So there's not a lot of wiggle room. The town has been our generous supporter for many years, and we still continue to appreciate that. Fundraising has been a serious challenge over the last couple of years. 2 years ago, we had the it was a successful event to be there, but in terms of fundraising, it was only semi-successful because we did not get nearly the turnout that we had been expecting. We ran a golf tournament and a Scotch tasting that year as well. Both were very successful. We attempted to run a golf tournament this past year. We had to cancel it due to lack of participation. And the Scotch, although a good event, unfortunately only generated about half the income that had happened in the previous year. Fundraising has been a challenge, and I think I mentioned presented at the November council meeting that getting volunteers is a challenge for many organizations. Matter of fact, Kathleen, legislator, I think it's the Markham Historical Society is actually looking at shutting down because they can't get volunteers. So it's been a struggle. We have somewhat been fighting against that tide. We've had some great programming over the last year and a half, and we're starting to get some traction out of that. And it has accounted for a small bump in income, but not a substantial bump in income. So at this point, we are looking at ways to improve that, and at the same time, we are quite aware that one of the ways we will improve our overall position, we have to reduce our staff, and we're looking at doing that in summer. We've got a fairly intense programming schedule taking us through to September, and after that, we will the contract for our additional staff will be over. So we will experience a reasonable decrease in terms of the expenses. So we keep on keeping on, and we have a small but very loyal group of volunteers who come and help us. So with that, I will, unless Kathleen or Dan's got anything to add at this point, I will turn it over to whatever questions you might have or comments. Thanks, sir.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. What are the numbers? So what are your membership numbers? And have they decreased slowly, steady, gone up and down? How does that work?
Yeah, we see about, sorry, through you. We see about 150 members. It's slowly decreasing, and we do have a little bit of fluctuation in it. Majority of them are life members, people who have been a part of the society for a long time and purchase a life membership. We still offer those, but we do see, new blood, for lack of a better term, coming in. But it is, it's not our main source.
Sure. Through you again, is the solution more members, that you can draw more volunteers and get more networking and all the rest of that type of thing? Or is there some other way forward? Because, I mean, I'm seeing this isn't very sustainable the way it is.
If I may add, so more members in terms of financial sustainability?
Right.
No, the reality is that even with, we probably have 100 paying members at $30 a year. That's $3,000. We would need 400 members just to cover our insurance costs.
Right.
So
Those members, I assume, is where you draw all your volunteers to be able to run your events and do your fundraising and
part,
things
yes.
that. Right. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks. Through you. Your revenue is fairly consistent year over year,
Yes.
with the exception of 21 and 22. For the most part, you look at 2019, 2020, and the forecast years going forward, you're around $150,000 a year. But on the total expense side, you seem to be a little bit more up and down. 2019, it was 140,000. 2020, it went down to 100. Then you have those 21 and 22 years where it went up. This year, you're projected around 2023, 212,000. And then you start decline 192, 150, 154. Just some insight in why it fluctuates so much. Is that the restoration fund for the building and grounds and allocating to that?
part of it is indeed, we had roughly a $100,000 project to restore the porch at the front, the porch at the front and on the north side. And a fair amount of work went into that. That was about $100,000 that project. We also, some of that shows in terms of additional staffing we've brought in either under Canada Summer Jobs or under some other granting systems. Now, and it does show up in different parts of the revenue stream. So Canada Summer Jobs is typically two students. We had not an intern. What would you call Claire?
Yes. Young Canada.
So through Young Canada Works, we had an intern who came in and worked through the Godfrey collection, and we will, that's done. And we will be reporting back to council on that. The Godfrey collection for the new members here is a series of archive material that have been with Hillary House for years. And we finally managed to put together a program to go through that. We have to, it had never been accessioned or inventory. So we had to go through that process to see what is there and then see how we can properly dispose of that from our ownership into hopefully Archives of Ontario, perhaps U of T. There are archives as well. So we've been working through that. Long answer, Councillor Thompson.
I mean, obviously, you know, I think that we're all aware of the challenges that you guys have had over the last few years. You know, in 2022, you operated at a loss, projecting an operating loss in 2023, you're projecting an operating loss in 2024. Are the reserves sufficient to carry those losses for at least 2024?
Yes. But it's, and I'm sure everybody here would agree, it's not a fiscally sustainable plan or even reasonable plan to do that. So we are looking at having to make some of the tough decisions in terms of how we move forward.
Is there other, through you, Mr. Mayor, other ideas or thoughts out there in terms of being able to pursue different avenues to generate additional revenue or other opportunities? Because, I mean, sure, in 25 and 26, you're in a break-even position where your revenue and expenditures offset one another, but to your point, it's not necessarily fiscally sustainable. You're just one bad day away from being, you know.
Maybe turn it over to Kathleen because we're looking at some revenue opportunities right now.
Yeah, we've been looking into the charitable gaming, Ontario charitable gaming, because we're a nonprofit and charity. So we're just in the process through Richmond Hill with their bingo gaming center. So that could net us like quite a profit. It is like volunteer run, and we've had several volunteers step up and say that they're willing to help out with that. Yeah, I think that's.
So that's potential.
It's about $3,500 each like session that you go to, and we could go to a session every 10 minutes. So we could net up to about 17,000 a year. But we're just in the process of the application is quite lengthy for that. So just in the process of that through the city of Richmond.
So again, through Mr. Barrett, aside from more funding from the town, what else?
Thank you.
What else can the town do to support Hillary House?
Well, we have this wonderful historical property that costs us a lot of money to maintain. So, you know, if the town wanted to take it over, and as a matter of fact, we will be coming to council sometime in the next month or so. We had a special members meeting about a month and a half ago, strictly to address the long-term sustainability of Hillary House. And the motion that came forward out of that meeting was the membership authorized the board of directors to approach the town with respect to exploring opportunities for long-term sustainability. So we're just working through with staff to get a date. That's it for me.
I think my question just got answered, but through you, I mean, I noticed the restoration expenses that are significant in 21, 22, and 23 only 5,000. And I don't suppose that's because the house is in perfect condition. It's just that you haven't budgeted for the expense that you need for that house. Is that correct or?
We're on if it breaks, we fix it. As a matter of fact, my card now says co-president, co-treasurer, and part-time plumber. Because usually, I'm not joking, it was in the last night working on the plumber. So.
It's one thing.
So the major renovation project we did a summer and a half ago, year and a half ago, pardon me, for the summer, was the front porch was pretty bad. It was in pretty rough shape. And so that was coordinated through ERA. And we have actually gone back with the assistance of the town. We went back to ERA this past fall, November, December timeframe, to do an enhanced condition assessment report, which we have a copy, the town has a copy, which lays out a fairly aggressive look at Hillary House in terms of this needs doing now, this needs doing in 5 years, this needs doing in 10 years. And these
Investigations.
yeah. And right now it's sitting at about $1 million. So yeah, no, $5,000 doesn't cut it. That's for service.
Okay, thanks. Well, I mean, give you full credit for taking on the job of this historical building and the stewardship that you've done over this last little while. And it's something I think is important for this community from a historical perspective. So thank you for all that. Nothing.
Nope.
Just gonna ask, Jeff, the federal government paid to do the fence, correct?
I'm sorry?
They paid to do the fence, and the fence got redone, right? Federal government provided funds for that.
Yeah, yeah.
For the front, yeah.
Yes, fence,
They didn't provide funds, they actually just did it.
they just did it.
Yeah,
They just did
it was their contractors, their materials, they just came and took it down and replaced it.
So that's Parks Canada.
Yeah.
That did that. We actually went through the files. This is, I guess that's when you were president, John. I went through the files and found a letter from Parks Canada that said they would maintain that fence in perpetuity. I'm sure someone probably got fired.
That's a good letter to have.
They took responsibility.
Yeah.
It was good.
So, so they did live up to the commitment and they replaced that last year.
Oh, that's good.
Well, I mean, I really don't have much to add other than echo. Two councilors said is that, you know, thanks for all the work that you guys do. Each and every one of you, I mean, we all know that it's a landmark in the community and it's important that we continue to try to preserve it and protect it. And so, I guess we're gonna have some very interesting conversations coming up, with council. So,
We hope so.
yeah. Thank you very much for coming in.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Everybody.
Memberships today,
20% more.
today only. But before 6:05, $25.
Members of council have to pay more.
Is it cash only?
We'll say cash.
Someone want to move the recommendation? Awesome. Please. All those in favor, opposed, that carries. Done, ladies, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, you guys. Appreciate it.
Like you said, if you're still hungry.
Yeah, there's so many.
Thank you. You guys come up with their questions.
Next.
Next time.
Whoa. Okay, fair enough.
Enjoy the rest of the evening.
Thank you.
See you. Thank you.
Thanks.
See you as always.
Thank you so much.
Hey, 7.2, capital project portfolio update.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, members of council. The PMO is here to provide you an update with respect to our major capital portfolio update and the implementation of earned value management. Leading the conversation will be Rahul. He's the PMO consultant and has been with the town about 2 years. He has a lot of expertise in project scheduling, management, as well as these types of calculations. He's been an amazing addition to the town of Aurora staff. And I think the world of him, and he's brought so much benefit to the PMO. I couldn't be prouder of his work for the last number of years. He does have a heavy civil infrastructure background as well. So Rahul,
Yeah.
please.
Thank you, Martin, for the kind introduction. So good evening, everyone. Like Martin mentioned, my name is Rahul. I am the PMO consultant, and today I'm here to provide an update on the approach to monitor the town's project portfolio performance. So the PMO has been making progress and has established a process to actively monitor project progress. Data is being collected for performing earned value management calculations, which is a traditional project management methodology. This methodology is used to assess a project's performance over time. The PMO is well versed in this area, and we would be happy to provide more information if required on this particular topic. A sample dashboard has also been prepared as shown in Exhibit 1, and this is what we are trying to achieve for the organization. So it has KPIs such as Schedule Performance Index and Cost Performance Index, which tells us how well we are doing in terms of schedule and budget. We understand that this is a new concept for everyone in our organization, and we are proactively demonstrating its value and are providing the necessary coaching as required. We will continue to collect data across the organization and make progress with the earned value management process. Thank you.
Well, there's going to be a lot of coaching here. So, I like it, but without understanding all the context behind it and what the values all represent, right? On first glance, it looks complex, right?
Right.
And so, I guess we'll get to a stage where internally we may understand it, but I don't know about the value of it for council or for the public without somebody having a familiarity with it. And for example, so we'll take panel 2. And I'm really looking at the graphs and everything. So if we look at panel 2, right, for myself, you've defined CPI as, looking for those that are on target with regards to cost. And you've identified those of a value of less than or greater to 1. But really, I really don't know when I look at the bars and I see them of equal weighting in various months, what that really means, right? What's the context behind it and what am I looking for? What is that benchmark, right? So if I take, September, for example, right?
Yeah.
Is that variance between those that are under 1 and over 1, good, not good?
Yeah.
What is that context for me to be able to, put it into consideration about, at the end of the day, we want projects that are staying within the budget, that's the goal.
Yep.
What does that graph really mean? And so I think, if we're going to utilize this or you're going to share this with the council, you're going to need a lot of coaching.
Right.
For members of council to understand what all these values mean in terms of context. And same with when I looked at panel 1.
Right.
And so, specifically looking at the blue bars for cost variance, right? We have a number of months where we're below the threshold and
Yep.
A number of months we're above it. Does it all even out at the end of the year? I don't know. How does that all relate? Like, it's a lot of data that I don't necessarily understand the context or how to apply it to, say, for decision making or understanding how
Right.
well we're doing. So I think that, I'll say for me or members of council, if you are going to continue to provide us with this, then you're going to need a lot more wording to be able to help us to understand it. I'm sure that's because you're so familiar with it.
Yeah.
from a mathematical perspective, you probably look at it and bingo, you know what it is, but there's a little bit of a gap for us.
Yeah, yeah.
But I liked it.
Yeah.
But I'd be very interested in being able to understand it better. And then how can I take this data and apply it to when we're doing our budgeting process, when we're looking at how well we have performed over the course of the year and we're evaluating that kind of thing. That's what, I guess for us or myself, that's what I'm trying to glean out of this is that, as an organization, how effective and efficient were we on delivering projects on time and on budget, and how does this data support that information?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So Councillor, so this, I completely understand where you're coming from. This is a new topic. There are gaps in understanding. So if I may, I could speak briefly to some of the KPIs that have been included here. So a couple of them are CPI and SPI, like I mentioned. So these ratios, these are ratios essentially, and ideally they should be equal to or greater than 1. So in project management methodology, if they are equal to 1, it means that they are on budget and as per the timeline. So if they are above 1, it means that we are doing better than what we planned. And so we are under budget and we are ahead of schedule. That's what it means. But at the moment it goes.
That's valuable information.
Yeah. So the moment it goes below 1, so that represents that we are behind schedule and we are actually spending more than what we should have, right, at a given point in time. And this helps project managers or management take a decision as to what corrective actions need to be done, right, to bring it back on track. So that's why these are important actions. And in the first panel, like you mentioned, and you would see that some of the bars are going below 0 and some of them are above 0, right? So those are the schedule variance and cost variances. So these are just integers, but the ratios actually, they show us how well a project is performing in comparison to other projects. So it's you can do a comparison among different projects. But when you look at the variances alone, so schedule variance, if it's positive, so schedule variance and cost variance, if they are greater than 0, which means it's good. So we are doing better than what we planned for. But the moment it goes below 0, that means that if it's a negative integer, it means that corrective actions need to be taken to bring it back on track.
And if this information is really more meant for internal evaluations and, and not necessarily for us, it's really just, to provide us with more of a final outcome or a written report. I'm comfortable with that at all. I like the fact that we're getting more sophisticated and we're utilizing this information to better inform us in terms of decision making, as well as you said, have more or better real-time data so that we can take those corrective actions whenever necessary.
Yep.
Then that's great. That's us becoming more effective and efficient as an organization and utilizing the tools that are out there to become, better at what we do. And I'm fully supportive of that.
Right. So you must, yeah, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, so Councillor Thompson, so the aspects that you're seeing on this dashboard, they are more internal. What we are trying to communicate to the Finance Advisory Committee and members of council is that the PMO is taking an active approach, and we want to develop a sense of confidence in you through us about how we manage the portfolio, how we look at how each project is performing. Further updates, they may not be to this level of detail. We, depending on what the information comes back to us as we collect it, we would ideally like to flag risk for higher threshold items once those thresholds are worked out. But it's that initial data collection around the portfolio. I think right now we have about 260 projects that we're actively collecting information on, and that includes financial as well as deliverable. Plus, we've included a quarterly update with all of the management team. So all of these processes are happening through the PMO so that we have an active management process on the portfolio. That way, when we come to the FAC or the executive leadership team, we want to be able to say from the PMO, you should have confidence in us in monitoring the town's the budget approvals through council, but also the financial aspects of what you have approved and what you've endorsed. So that's where the PMO sees as adding a lot of value for this year and then going forward. Once this is established, we believe that the controls will be much tighter. The SPI, CPI calculations, once those are in place, the active monitoring will be very precise and very responsive to responsible financial management.
So as a follow-up question with respect to the budget, so, part of these metrics are designed to illustrate, how the project is doing against the original budget. One of the things we've seen over the years when we've done capital projects is that sometimes we're not always correct in our initial budget estimation. That, when the closeout reports come to us, there might be a big variance. And one of the explanations really is that, perhaps we under or overestimated the initial cost for whatever reason. Will these processes make us better at those initial estimations in terms of, ensuring that we start off on the right foot when it comes to the budget? So that way, when we do mine this data, it's reflective of I guess, a good initial first step, right? Because if we were wrong in the initial budgeting of the cost of the project, then it really doesn't matter what this is, because, all it's going to do is highlight the error.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's an excellent question, and actually, me and Rahul, we were thinking right along these lines as well. So the initial budget approval includes a contingency. So there's a standard contingency, 10%. That's just called 10%. Just for this example, if any of the calculations exceed that 10% within this frame, it automatically flags for us as a risk, because it's not only it's exceeded that 10% contingency, and usually that should be included within the budget, but it's immediately flagged for us in the calculations and then flagged in the reporting. So we do want to actively monitor that, and we want to make sure that if there is excess or beyond the original CBA or council budget authority, that is flagged.
I think it's great. Good direction.
Yeah, I'll echo what Councillor Thompson said about the complexity of this. It took me a little while to go online to take a look at SPI, CPIs, and the earned value management calculation. So it's good for the math guys to do that. But what I see on it is, and if you can verify this also tells you the amount of difference there is. I mean, right now we're used to our CAO talking to us in terms of a color, a green, a red, or a yellow. And really what we're looking at is your calculations will be able to show us how far off you are, because it's going to be a math. It could be very close, but this one you'll be able to say it's way off. Is that correct?
To you, Mr. Mayor, that's absolutely correct. If the example that I mentioned, if we are staying at 1, for example, if the CPIs and SPIs are at 1, which means we are doing good, right? Good as planned. But how way off from 1 we are, we can estimate how good or bad we are doing. For example, if we are at 1.5, it says that we are spending 1.5 times less than 0.5 times less than what was planned, right? But if it is at 0.5, we are spending twice as much as what we actually planned.
Okay, and yeah, thank you. That's good. The other thing that I'm interested in is the amount of work it takes to be able to gather all of this and to be able to display it. And then, as you talked about coaching, who is actually doing this, and how are these numbers coming together, and how often will they come to council, so we get to see how those 200 projects are moving? Because I can see it right now. There's project 1, 2, 3, 4 up to 200, and we'll be able to see immediately whether they're on schedule or they're on budget. Who's doing this work? Is it left up to individual project managers, or is it all feeding into one person so that one person has that information?
To you, Mr. Mayor. So currently we have set up a SharePoint file, an Excel file, where we are asking all the managers to input details regarding their projects, regarding their capital projects. So we are reaching out to all the divisional managers and asking for input with respect to start and end dates, percent plan for each quarter, and we are planning to collect the percent complete as well for each quarter, right, for the next few years. And we also have the total budget authority for all the projects from the finances team. So we are tracking everything from the PMO side. So we are reaching out to staff and collecting this information. And once we refine and analyze this, we will be able to perform such calculations.
And the last one through you, Mayor, is this in a beta test right now? Are we collecting that information and is it, do we have a real life examples of some of the projects that you could share with us, or is it still in a hypothetical environment?
Right, through you, Mr. Mayor. It's currently in a beta testing, as you mentioned. We are still collecting the data. We would like to check the accuracy of this data and refine it further and make sure that they accurately represent the performance of the projects before bringing anything back to management or council, because we want to make sure that all the information that we present, it represents the actual or accurate performance of the portfolio.
Thank you. And the last one, I guess, is to our CAO. I mean, you've obviously been following along on this, and you've had a pretty big project in your wheelhouse over the last little while. Does this make all perfect sense to you in terms of being able to look at both the formative as well as the summative evaluation of what's going on in projects?
Through Mr. Mayor, I mean, these guys have pulled away from me. I've lost them as well. I need the same training that you guys are gonna need. But absolutely, the process behind this has been excellent, and they brought along the corporate management team as well with them, who are contributing in it. So it's more than just about these graphs. It's about the mentality that we're shaping in the organization that has people actually focusing on, you know, what constitutes a project that's being well managed or is in trouble, and what are the signs, and how are we going to, you know, develop a system to hold the whole organization accountable to some more formal ways of tracking this stuff and monitoring. So it's fabulous to see, and I've heard from the outside people that have been privy to some of the work that's being done here, and most concur that this is well beyond most organizations our size. We're pioneering here, so pretty impressive.
Yeah, so in a perfect world, we should be able to look at project A, B, C, and D and get a snapshot of this almost at any time. And get an idea through of where that project is, whether it's on time, it's on budget.
So, you, Mr. Mayor. So yes, Councillor. So just to reiterate Rahul's point, so the information is centralized. So the PMO is leading this analysis. So what we wanted to do is create a one-stop, so sort of a node where the analysis takes place, because we found during our initial environmental scans, a lot of our teams were doing some of this work already, but it wasn't centralized. So we're trying to tell a cohesive story with respect to portfolio management. So the town is taking a product that's the portfolio management route is used deliberately. It has a specific meaning in the project management where we're looking at portfolio analysis. The second part is with respect to the projects. So although yes, we are let's call it beta testing, the data that we are collecting on the 200+ projects, they are live projects that the town is currently managing. So we are doing the analysis and the data capture on projects that are being actively managed at the town, not figurative, not imaginative projects. There are 200+ projects in the town that we are taking a look at, deliverables, budget, when things are being done, and we're trying to piece together one cohesive story.
Great. Love it. Thank you.
Great job.
Thank you, Mr.
Proceed for commission. Please, Thompson, all in favor, opposed, and carries. Next. Fiscal service delivery review.
Mr. Mayor, good evening, and Councillor, good evening once again. Pleased to provide you an update on the progress of implementing the recommendations outlined in the 2021 Municipal Service Delivery Review. At the last FAC or the November FAC meeting, the FAC further requested clarity with respect to the key tangible benefits of each initiative listed, the methodology for calculating the financial and productivity benefits, as well as a commitment to regular progress update with respect to its implementation. Our management team has worked diligently to implement 9 service improvement recommendations, as was spoken to in the previous note. But I'd just like to elaborate a little bit on some of the key tangible benefits on a few of the initiatives. One of them being the hybrid work example that was recommended. And we've been able to improve overall business continuity and resilience across our enterprise. So staff can work remotely, but during times of disruption, me managing the emergency operations program here at the town, that is a tremendous benefit to our organization from a resilience perspective, where we can activate virtually and have key staff come in or do remote work as needed. Lastly, from a recruitment perspective in that category, the hybrid work approach has allowed the town to recruit different geographic areas, as well as opened us up to a higher level of candidates from across the broader geographic region. Rahul being one of those examples. I know he's a little bit late, but one of the reasons he joined was we offered a hybrid work environment, which was a tremendous recruitment effort, and the town continues to make real great progress in terms of recruiting candidates in that regard. With respect to the recommendation on the PMO, on the corporate performance focus shift, so that was a recommendation in the SDR. Some of the history behind the PMO, it didn't exist a few years ago. There was a single staff, and it was a little bit, I would say, disjointed in terms of some of the workflows and how the project management function was managed. The ELT did a bit of a reorg and centralized this function and really enabled some of the processes and the best practices that we're seeing today, like earned value management. And that's a tremendous effort and tremendous progressive step forward for us in terms of project management function and having the centralized function. We've been able to do things like corporate performance management, which most of council participated last fall in. And again, that has put us in a leadership position. And recently, actually last week, we just applied to the International City Managers Association for an award in corporate performance and governance. So we're looking forward to a positive outcome in that regard as well. But that's all due to the leadership in this organization and that shift in the PMO to a more corporate performance and strategy type focus. And lastly, another highlight was the corporate communication strategy, which was the shift in corporate communications to more strategic focus. Again, a recommendation in the SDR, and council saw the corporate communication strategy tabled just a few weeks ago. And that's, again, putting the corporate communications department in a very forward-looking leadership position. All key tangible benefits in this regard and with respect to implementation of SDR. And then when we get into the conversation regarding the methodology for calculating financial and productivity benefits, the methodology was developed by Strategy Corp, and we relied on their expertise in terms of the modeling and some of the productivity savings. Although we do realize that these were more productivity savings and not direct savings, they were still seen as more aspirational type goals and things to work towards, rather than I would say absolutes that must be met. And lastly, we continue to monitor the SDR for implementation, and we're committed to providing regular updates to the Financial Advisory Committee every quarter. And we look forward to answering any questions that you may have. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, I enjoyed reading. A lot of really good strategies and directions, and they sublimated it the way I really appreciate it. There's a lot of description as opposed to empirical information, and are we just not there yet to be able to put some numbers and monitoring in place to show significant? When you talk about tangible means you can see it, feel it, count it. Are we getting close to that, or how close are we through you to seeing something that is more empirically based as opposed to descriptive?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, so so in order to demonstrate the quantitative, we would have to follow the modeling and the methodology that's described in the SDR. And that's modeled along the productivity savings line, which is entirely, or excuse me, not entirely, yeah, the majority of that calculation is driven by salary information. The way the math worked with respect to this model was a particular initiative or an improvement initiative, one of the 39 that you see was tabled. And then a series of assumptions were made with respect to how much salary of that FTE would be utilized in order to deliver that service. And then that was a net was taken from that after implementation. So that's why I do caution around that math. And I do state that in the memo, because in order to demonstrate that, I can demonstrate it by following the method that the consultant used. If I use any other method, then it will be a completely different model. And that's why it is challenging to, for example, say, well, we saved exactly this amount of money and we can trace it exactly to this impact in the budget, for example.
Yeah,
Right.
just to add to what Martin's saying here is like, it's not necessarily a tangible, you're gonna save this amount of dollars exactly, but it's going to create capacity in other areas to be able to do additional things that are happening in the various departments. So it's that capacity creation, which doesn't really translate into an actual dollar savings, because that capacity gets eaten by other projects or growth within the community as well.
Yeah, so I see a lot, the cost accounting and looking at what people do and what they spend their time on. And of course, getting rid of duplication services I mean, everybody understands it. I'm just trying to put a number on it to be able to say, yeah, this is working and it's going in the right direction. So through you, who has a.
So back in the day when I used to do cost accounting, it's not as straightforward as, like, it's much more straightforward than like this. It's like you can actually manage time by products and actually adjust based on your volumes. This is more qualitative than being strictly by the numbers. So it's more about capacity creation, but you know, if, like, say if Martin, he saves 10% of his time, well, we can't get rid of 10% of Martin. But we still need all of them to do other things within the organization. And that's what a lot of this was. It was about creating capacity. I know there was one specific procurement, for example, but it wasn't necessarily about, like, it related it to procurement contract values, but it was more of an empirical, you could save up to this percentage, but it's hard to quantify when cost procurements are going up with inflation and the business is expanding, but it's about putting the right tools in place. If we put the new financial system in place, if we updated the procurement bylaw, we created more procurement options. Those things should be saving us money. How do you quantify that? It's very difficult.
Okay, good. Thank you.
First up, I think our meeting was in January, not November.
Oh.
I think November's got canceled and we were in January.
Oh,
But anyways,
Oh,
so thank you for bringing back the information. Sure. I think what I was trying to do when we talked about it last time was trying to bring it back to the original strat report that we got back in 2021 or whatever. And in that report, in the executive summary, in table E, it talked about the fact that there would be a net annual savings of nearly $1 million. Granted, to your point, it wouldn't necessarily be a direct savings. It may be, in large part, a productivity savings, or to use Rachel's words, increase in capacity for staff to do more, which is fine, because I mean, at the end of the day, we're always trying to be more efficient and more effective. But again, now that we've come through this process, how can we better illustrate that we are able to do more from a capacity perspective, or that there is some degree of savings as well, and reflect that back as we go through the budget approach? Because quite frankly, we often see at budget time requests for additional staffing, and the part of the rationale is staff are overloaded. And so we need to bring on more staff to be able to cope with demands. But at the same time, here we've gone through this process and said, we've become more effective, creating more capacity to do more. So how do we reconcile these two, I guess, conversations where in one hand, we're saying we were very successful in this service review, finding savings either through capacity or direct, but then bring it all back to the budgeting process and say, you know, yes, our costs still go up. Yes, there's more demands on our time. Yes, we still need more people brought on, but it would be even worse if we hadn't have gone through this. And this is how we demonstrate or illustrate this to it so that we can show that this exercise provided, to Ron's point, a tangible benefit that we can talk about or demonstrate. And you know, there's a magic way to just say, hey, listen, we're achieving more, right? We're doing more, we're accomplishing more. Just look at our list of achievements and stuff, and we can point, and that's how we have to point to it, then fine. But I just think there has to be that exercise that shows that either the organization as a whole is achieving more as a result of becoming more effective, and or we've saved money through these processes. And you know, to demonstrate that would be beneficial to show that there was value in going through this exercise, because I do agree that, you know, in reading all the words, they're great, but I'd like to see some raw data or something more tangible to back up those words. There's not really a question, I guess, but you're free to comment on that.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So perhaps, Councillor Thompson, when I interpret tangible, I don't necessarily, one aspect I do think about is the financial, that's the easy kind of, okay, what's the number here? Tell me the number, right? It's very binary. The other tangible are some of the outcomes that have been outlined in this memo. Those are tangible outcomes. With respect to the exhibit E and the 39, I have it on my screen as well. That was demonstrated as more of a roadmap as well. Like, here's what you can do. And I can tell you a whole bunch of these have been completed. Now, I would say it'd be disingenuous if I said this was completed and we realized 140K. And the reason why I'm not comfortable communicating from that perspective is because I can't do a direct trace. I cannot do that. The only way I could even remotely present that information is, again, if I made the same assumptions in the modeling that Strategy Corp did and made the salary assumptions and FTE assumptions. And I can give you that number, but it would not be a precise and accurate reflection, because I can't say right now, based on, let's just say, the capacity that this freed up, and to Rachel's point, we did the PMO role transition. I didn't gain 10% of time. I did not, because right away there were new assignments and new work and new opportunities provided to me and my team. So we're more than willing to, like, what's next? What can we do? How can we help? It is our perspective. And the management team is the exact same way. So although they'll complete an item, and keep in mind, this is a runway and it's like a balance sheet, it's just a point in time, they'll complete offsite wedding services, but they're right away onto the next thing. So that capacity is just fluctuates every single month. So they may complete, okay, great. Thank you for the 39 recommendations. We completed 9. Now they're on to a new thing. So what I am trying to convey is, it would be disingenuous for me to give you a number. I can try to produce a number, but it would have to be based on the exact same methodology, because if I deviate from that methodology, it's a completely different modeling exercise.
Thank you. And, you know, I certainly recognize that, you know, the challenge of being able to illustrate it. And I'm not, you know, asking for you to validate that number, because I understand that there's a lot of assumptions associated with the methodology as well. But it's just, you know, how do we, council, myself, to the residents, show that we've become a more efficient and effective organization as a result of going through the service review? What can we point to? What can we, you know, show either from a capacity or productivity perspective, or even from a savings perspective that said, this was a worthwhile exercise, look what it did, then they would be able to grasp and understand. And maybe it is, as you put in the explanations with regards to some degree that, streamlining certain processes, they're able to handle more call volume and things like that. And maybe that is the answer. I don't know. That's why I'm sort of turning back to say, are there other ways that we can kind of demonstrate and illustrate, that the net result of doing this made us a better organization? No different than what you've done through prior item with the PMO reporting and that sophistication with all those reports. Now you're able to say, listen, I can drill down into this and show you exactly how much better things are in the PMO's office, because we're able to, identify these things sooner, better, faster, and take corrective action. I guess in some ways, I'm looking for something else through this process that says, yeah, now as an organization, streamline this, improve this, and these are the ways that we can show it. And maybe it is only, through words, maybe it is, there are some other tangible and empirical, just to give that some thought in terms of a KPI or how we can best show that to taxpayers.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I appreciate the comment, Councillor Thompson, and I'll take that back to my team and we'll report back to FAC at the next meeting. Hopefully we can have something in terms of a communique around.
I don't want to add to your workload in 30 days and stuff. If it takes a little bit longer, that's okay as well, all right?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm happy to take on work if
That's all right.
that's what we're here for.
But overall, I am pleased with the exercise. I do see it, but I just want to continue to try and be able to demonstrate it to everybody so it's clear.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson.
And I mean, to your point, so I'll give you a very really easy examples. Mayor Duncan from Guelph, he did a video and he was just showing the numbers of how they've changed processes in planning and they streamlined the process, and he basically said, well, look here, 2021, 300 days to get an approval. 2022, we dropped it down to like 100 days. And because of what we did, we were able to drop it down. And that shows now the residents that it worked. What we did worked. And this is such a simple thing to show. And I think that's kind of what you're getting now. Right? Yeah.
And also on that line, I was looking at some of the things that are customer service related. I mean, so surveys and satisfaction of customers who come to us and ask questions and look for problems, but also employee satisfaction numbers. I'm sure that if an employee is properly assigned, is not overburdened with work, and is happy with the work that they're doing, they're going to give you a higher rating on their employee satisfaction. So there are some things you can probably think about, but I'm saying with Councillor Thompson, our residents want to know that our money is being spent wisely and that we're getting the best bang for the buck. So whenever we can do that, I think it's important that we do it. That's all from me.
Yeah, and just to tag onto that, I mean, absolutely, that's always an important component, but just also, as a general comment, I like the continual culture that we continue to drive in terms of trying to be more effective and efficient, always looking to ways in which to streamline or improve processes. I think that's an important culture for any organization. That was part and parcel of the rationale behind always doing these service reviews and continue to look at what we do. Even though we may say we do things well, you can always look and try and find ways to enhance or improve those aspects of it. And I think that's a testament to Doug and ELT that they continue to look for ways to drive those efficiencies and effectiveness, and that's the right thing to do in any organization. And I applaud you for it.
All those in favor? All those against? Business. No, you didn't. New business? No. Motion to adjourn. Like Ron, all those in favor? Opposed, that carries. Thank you very much.